Now on Crossroads Politics, Indiana's governor faces growing pressure as the debate rages over redistricting.
Do the right thing. Stand with your voters. They're the ones who elected you, and they are saying we don't want cheaters.
This week, Indiana lawmakers went to Washington to talk more with the vice president. Some weren't on board with redrawing maps, but did the trip change their mind?
We have to consider the importance of enacting President Trump's policies and moving forward, and how important this midterm election actually is.
Back here in Indiana, communities are scrambling to try and deal with budget cuts.
You'll see some consolidation. That's the only way we can make this happen.
The work to make ends meet this week on Crossroads Politics. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dustin Grove. We start with the push to redraw Indiana's congressional maps. President Trump wants Republican-controlled states, including Indiana, to consider redrawing their districts to help pad the GOP majority in Congress. Here, that would require a special legislative session, and Indiana's leaders haven't committed quite yet. Our State House reporter Emily Longnecker talked with the governor on Wednesday. You've also talked with lawmakers, including those who went to the White House. Let's start with the governor, because he'd be the one to call this special session.
Right.
Where does he stand right now?
So he continues to put the onus on the legislators, and he says that it would have to be clear what they want before he makes any kind of decision, and what they hear from the Republican caucuses in both houses of the state legislature. And when I spoke to two lawmakers who were on the trip, they weren't any more willing to commit than the governor.
I'm happy with our maps right now.
That doesn't mean Republican State Representative Jim Lucas wouldn't consider supporting a special session to redraw those maps, after initially saying he was a hard no. Lucas says that's changed after meeting Tuesday with members of the Trump administration, including with Vice President J.D. Vance in D.C.
We have to consider the importance of enacting President Trump's policies and moving forward, and how important this midterm election actually is.
Something he says would be harder to do if Democrats regain control of the House.
It would be irresponsible of us to not take into consideration everything.
A sentiment echoed by Republican State Representative Craig Haggard, who was also among the Indiana Republicans who traveled to D.C. for Tuesday's meeting.
I think we need to do whatever we need to do to continue the direction the country's going right now, because I think it's going in a better direction.
Haggard recently announced he's running for Congress in Indiana's 4th Congressional District. He characterized the topic of redistricting as a small part of Tuesday's meeting.
It wasn't, you will do this, you will do this. It was, this is what we're doing. This is how you could partner if you want to.
State Democrats have accused their Republican colleagues of bowing to a power grab by the president, who's called for redistricting in red states across the country. Last weekend, Texas lawmakers voted to redraw their state's maps. In response, California lawmakers approved holding a special election so voters can decide if California's map should be redrawn to favor more democratically held seats in Congress and offset any seats Republicans stand to gain in Texas. Here in Indiana, Governor Braun said there's still plenty of time to see what lawmakers here want to do.
It'll be done in a methodical, not rushed way. We'll get to the point where they're going to feel comfortable with where they want to go, and we'll act accordingly.
Now, as you'd expect, Indiana Democrats do not support redrawing congressional maps. They say that if Braun calls for a special session, they want Republican lawmakers to forego the pay and mileage reimbursements they would normally receive in a special session. But again, it's still not clear when a special session would happen.
Yeah, and the House Speaker, the President of the Senate, of course, kind of leading the discussion, trying to gauge where lawmakers are on this. Have they indicated where they are on this?
You know, not really. Speaker Todd Huston issued a statement on Wednesday saying, in part, I appreciated the opportunity for me and members of our caucus to hear from Vice President Vance and others about the tremendous work of the Trump administration. A wide range of topics were discussed, including education, energy, immigration, fiscal responsibility, and redistricting, and members were able to ask questions and share their thoughts. Bray likewise acknowledged talking about redistricting, but said that the focus of the meeting was on other topics.
And other Republican delegations from other states have been invited to these meetings with the White House over the last couple of months. As you mentioned, some Democrats all Democrats really have vehemently rallied against this.
Yeah. And the ones from here, they were at the airport this week as the Republican colleagues were heading out to Washington, D.C., protesting the redistricting push and denouncing it. They also highlighted the cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars for this session, and defended any lawsuits that might be filed after. But with Republicans holding a supermajority in the General Assembly, Democrats really have no power in this decision.
Right, so it's up to the GOP, although we should mention there have been a handful of Republican lawmakers who have said they do not support this, and
Right.
then as you mentioned, a couple of others that weren't for it and then have since said, maybe.
Right.
Regardless, the governor says he wants to see if there is a consensus, because it seems they wouldn't go through this unless they think they've got very good odds to pass it. They're not going to go through a special session unless they think they can pass it. But the window to do this is a small one. They've got to decide pretty soon.
Yeah, they do.
If the governor calls a special session, it puts state lawmakers on a shot clock. Under state law, a special session can only last 30 business days or 40 calendar days, whichever's shorter. If they don't get it done by then, they either have to give up or the governor has to call a second special session. As for redistricting, that's all on the legislature, though there aren't that many rules about how they do that. During normal redistricting every decade, there are usually public hearings throughout the state. But given the time constraints here, those might be limited this time, and they're not required. The only real rules for the districts are that they need to have equal populations, and they can't discriminate against voters based on race. One thing that won't come up are the districts for those state lawmakers themselves. Indiana's Constitution says those can only be drawn in the year after a census, so they'd stay the same regardless of a special session. And those new congressional districts would take effect next year, so it could change things relatively quickly. And when you think about it, they've got Organization Day for the next regular session in November. So if they're going to have this special session, it's got to happen, or at least be announced within the next couple of weeks or months. Theoretically, I guess they could do it in the regular session.
I guess
right?
they could, but there's always so much going on right at the start, and
Yeah.
it's a short session next year. It's not a budget year, so that means that things go pretty quick in that shorter session. So we'll see. We should say that all of the Hoosier Republicans in the U.S. House have come out in support of redistricting. Senator Jim Banks has also voiced his support, though obviously as a statewide office, the redistricting wouldn't change his map. Senator Todd Young, though, is following in the governor's footsteps, saying he'll follow the lead of the state legislators.
And the two Indiana Democrats in Congress are both opposed. Representative Andre Carson accuses Republicans of wanting to cheat, and Representative Frank Mervan up in the 1st District in Northwest Indiana defiantly telling Republicans to bring it on. And that's because they think this could actually backfire on Republicans if this happens.
I mean, it could. It comes down to math. And as you mentioned, congressional districts have to have equal populations. So if you want to redraw one district to put more Republicans in it, you have to put the Democrats that you're drawing out in another district. So for example, to break up Frank Mervan's district along Chicago, you would have to put some of the voters in Deep Blue Gary in a district held by a Republican, and that could make those Republican districts more competitive.
And that's why you have even some Republican state lawmakers saying, wait a minute, let's think really hard about this.
Right.
Is this something that we want to get into?
Right.
The point of a gerrymander is to grow the majority for the party drawing the maps. Is there any word on how the public feels about this?
So we've got one poll by left-leaning Change Research on behalf of Count Us In. They found that only about 34% of Hoosiers support redistricting, 52% oppose it. When pollsters explained the arguments on both sides, something called push polling, the results were even worse for redistricting. Just 29% supported, while 60% opposed.
And midterms are normally rough for the party in power. National polls show growing support for Democrats on a generic ballot. Real Clear Politics polling shows an almost 4% lead for Democrats across national polls right now.
Right. Right. And a special election this week may have also given Republicans pause. A special election in Ohio. Ohio's 1st Senate district flipped in a big way. Caitlin Dray won by 11%. In 2022, Republicans won that district by 11%. That's a 22-point swing. And to be clear, Dustin, we're talking about one state-level legislative election in Iowa. So take what you will from those results, but I'm sure Republicans are looking at those.
And so are we. All right,
We are.
Emily, thank you very much. We have much more ahead on Crossroads Politics.
It's just really frustrating to be placed in this position. We feel like we had some momentum, and we want to keep that momentum going. And
The governor wanted property tax reform, and after a long fight, lawmakers gave it to him. And Hoosiers, a lot of them celebrated. Well, we'll tell you why cities say they're the ones dealing with the fallout. Bit of a pinch there in the budget when we come back. Earlier this year, state lawmakers and the governor touted what they call historic property tax relief for Hoosiers. Now, cities are working to figure out what that means for public services. So our Matthew Foltz went to Muncie this week, where the mayor says they're having to make some tough decisions.
Muncie Mayor Dan Ridenour tells me that the city will be losing over $1 million in next year's budget due to Senate Bill 1. And he says this will impact many of the city's departments, but despite that, he believes they can still get the job done.
The mayor tells me right now next year's budget is looking like it will be around $29.2 million. Back in the spring, Governor Braun signed Senate Bill 1, which was a property tax relief bill. Mayor Ridenour says that bill cuts Muncie property revenue by nearly 7% down to $17.1 million. Right now, the mayor says it's forcing the city to make many cuts in many departments, but police, fire, EMS, and public works will not be touched.
our other departments, you'll see some consolidation. And that's the only way we can make this happen. That's a large number for us, 1.4 million. We're 65,000 people, and last year in that the property tax revenues were about $18.5 million, and so that's a substantial cut.
The mayor there says the public will have the chance to weigh in on the proposed budget at next month's meeting before the council makes a final approval decision in October. And that does it for this week's episode of Crossroads Politics here on WTHR Plus. For Emily Longnecker and all of us here at 13 News, I'm Dustin Grove. Thanks so much for watching. We hope to see you next time.